did tell me last Thursday, I think it was, when he started to leave, he said, I should be back Wednesday, but if I'm not, be prepared. And I said, okay. So anyway, I was praying all day that they'd make it back. So anyway, and when I come up to church and there was two cars in the parking lot, I found out he wasn't going to be back. So anyway, but yeah, well, that's right. So I guess the Lord wanted me up here. But anyway, but he's on vacation. He's on the way. Chad said he's on the way back, and but everybody needs a vacation, and we all have to just take those burdens off of us and stuff that everyday life, everyday stress, everyday temptation and stuff, and get them off of us and stuff, And in fact, I think we're planning a vacation in a few weeks, but my family wants to go on a cruise, and I'm sitting here thinking about this thing today. Well, you got to be at the cruise ship on time. You got to be you get off at a certain time, be back at a certain time, get to the next port at a certain time, get off at a certain time. What kind of vacation is it going to be? So anyway, you got to rush. And as they told us, now my son always likes to be late. My wife always likes to be late. And so they told us the last cruise that we were on that if when we started to get back on the boat, when we were over in the Bahamas, that if we were 2 minutes late, make sure we brought the camera so we get the best picture of the whole trip. As the boat was leaving, they'd be standing on the dock. So I have informed them if they're late, I guess they'll still be over there. So if we come back without them, y'all know why. So, but anyway, I got to thinking, I said, well, you know what I'm going to speak on, and and y'all know that I'm more of a self-checkup person. I'm not judgmental towards other people, but I like things to be able to do self-checkup for myself, and I think everybody needs to do it all the time. Brother Titus had mentioned the book of James Sunday, and I got to thinking about this thing. I said, well, I like the book of James. It'd been a while since I read it last night. Sat down, read the whole book again, got into it. I said, because James relates, the whole Bible relates to things we do and today, and because I believe that it is a living Bible. And I've been open about it. I've never had a Sunday school lesson or read anything that didn't pertain to my life the week before, the week of, or the week after. And I believe that's the way the Lord just handles things. He puts things on our path to just open our eyes and go through things. But in the book of James, it's a short book, like 5 or 6 chapters, something like that. But in fact, for me to read the whole thing last night, it's not, it's not real long, which I've read it before. But, in chapter 1, it said, James, a servant of God, the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes that are scattered abroad, greeting. So, there he's just laying out who he is, and, but he didn't elaborate, on who he was, because we know that he's the half-brother of Jesus, and, and that's not the focal point of who wrote it. The focal point is the things that he's talking about. So anyway, when we start talking about the faith and the things we go through, and we have to humble ourselves down. And, we know that we're going through persecution. This time we know that there were false teachers and prophets and stuff. And those same things happen in our lives today. He said, my brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptation. And so, when we look at that and we say, well, who, likes to be tempted? And, when we look at things and say, well, should we count it all joy? But what we have to do in our life, when we go through things on a day-to-day basis, we know that we're going to have good days. We know we're going to have bad days. Yesterday, I was out working by myself in the hot sun down in Bucksport and stuff, and I really went, and I thought about this a lot yesterday, and especially, today, now that it was over. I was down working on a piece of equipment by myself in the hot sun, and I was just really had a tough time with this thing. I could not get it fixed, and I was just at a point, I was just getting all emotional. I was hot, I was sweaty, I was tired, and here I am thinking about these things, why in the world do I have to go through this thing? And I spent like 3.5 hours by myself trying to get one little part to go in and couldn't ever get it. And finally give up on it and went back today, took William with me. Me and William went down there and everything fell right into place. And, and I'm thinking, when these trials and these temptations come, but one thing we've got to understand is when the temptation comes, that's not the sin. The sin is how we handle the thing. Because we all get tempted all the time, but but we know that God's not going to tempt us. But when the temptation comes, how do we handle it? That's where the sin comes in. We look back at Adam and Eve. Well, God said, don't partake of this tree. You can have anything in the garden except for this tree. Well, that wasn't God tempted them. What they done afterwards, when Eve offered it to Adam and he partook of it, that was the sin. When Bathsheba was out taking a bath and David, looked on her and started lusting on her, it wasn't a sin that she took a bath. It was a sin when he started lusting on it and he started acting on it. And then that's where all this stuff comes in. But here, like I say, he said, look, but count it all joy when we fall into these diverse temptations. Why is that? Because we've got to have the strength to be able to come through these things. And, just like yesterday, I mean, like I say, I was almost to the point where I was about to have a nervous breakdown. And, but what did I do when I come to this point? I just had to sit back, take a break, and just start praying to the Lord. I don't know why I'm going through this, but, obviously there's a reason. And, when we go through life, if we never have any scrapes and bruises as Christians, how would we ever know once we arrive? And I tell people all the time, if you never have a bad day, how would you know that you had a good day? So, we've got to go through these things and pick up all these battle scars along the way to know when we get to the other side where we've been at and what we come through and why God allowed us to go through certain things to get to certain points. Now, look, well, none of us are important, but none of us are perfect, but when we go through these things, and he said, but when we should count it joy. Why? Why should we count it joy? Because we know that he's going to bring us through the other side. If not, we would always be worried, walking around, scared to death all the time. But we know if we're going to count it joy because we know he's already going to bring us through the other side. He said, but knowing this in verse 3, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. And, and I've made it known that patience is something I've really had to work on over years. And maybe that's the reason he put me through that point. Maybe that's the reason he allowed me to get run over by a tractor in 2005 and lay in my recliner off and on for 3 years. Because, working on my patience, did it work? He's still working on it, that's all I can tell you, because it's 2019. But, it's something we've got to go through and continue to strive through. He said, but look, but let the patient have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Now that word perfect there, that's not meaning that the perfect like we think. What that means is entire and complete. And said, so look, but let that patient have that perfect work, that complete work, the cycle that God wanted to go through to help us out through things. And, and when we sit back and we look at our life as Christian people, we're going to have faults and we're going to have failures, but we can't let it beat us down. In Sunday school, the ones who've been showing up, we've been in the book of Timothy. If you haven't been showing up, you need to come. It's a good book. But the thing about it was, the last few weeks we've been talking about widows and orphans and taking care of them and stuff. But then on July the 4th, I seen a shortcoming in my own life. And, we always Christian people, we think that we're doing what we're supposed to do and arriving. But then the Lord always just put something in our path to say, well, look, you're not paying attention where you need to be. And so here we are talking about widows, talking about orphans and stuff, and taking care of people, loving your brother and helping them. And Paul's laying all this stuff out for Timothy. 4th of July, we took the day off. Donna was in there getting a shower. I had decided to go out and start trimming up some trees. And when I went to on our property line and between us and the neighbor, well, here comes one of my neighbors over, and they're probably in their late 70s, maybe early 80s, had come walking across the yard, and she's had a couple of strokes and stuff, so it had took her a while, and she was limping over, and she's got a speech impairment, of course, which, I'm hard of hearing anyway. But you have to listen real careful, and she come across, made her way over, and of course, me being a human being, oh my God, here, I'm trying to trim some trees. I've just come out here and started this thing, and now somebody going to interrupt me. Had about 2 limbs cut off. Donovan there fussing because I'm out here trimming trees instead of getting ready. So anyway, and here comes my neighbor. So anyway, so I'm like, yes, ma'am, you okay? And she kept saying, 2 days. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I called down. I said, look, there's something wrong. Let's come over here to the house and find out what's going on. And, here, us as good Christian neighbors that's supposed to be looking out for people, had our neighbors tell us they hadn't eaten in 2 days. And I'm like, how is this even possible? And these things go through my mind. But what had happened was and money's not an issue. And I told my Sunday school class this Sunday, because I remember Mr. Rogers saying years ago, he said, one day you're going to have money and not be able to use it. And his daddy used to tell him that. And I told my Sunday school class this. I said, look, they had money. She come up and said, look, here's some money, but they hadn't eaten in 2 days. And I was like, well, this don't even make no sense. We Christian people, they living right beside us. How you go 2 days without eating? And so, anyway, but what had happened, they're not able to cook, don't need to be cooking, what I'm saying, don't need to cut the stove on, but their vehicle, they got in a wreck, and the insurance hadn't set it up on the vehicle. And so they didn't have any way to go back and forth to work. And I guess the phone, they'd forgot her phone number, hadn't been able, and he just had a hip replacement not too long ago. He's hard to get around. She hurt her sternum and stuff, and now he should come up. But the point I'm getting at, and we were able to go get them breakfast, went and bought them some groceries, and they've got people checking in on them, also. I mean, they're not completely desolate. But the point I'm getting at, we as Christian people can't see 100 feet away. And I'm talking about my shortcomings. You think about your life and do a self-checkup on it. And that's what we have to do. When we go through these trials in life, what we got to do is say, well, why did he put me through this? Maybe I need to pay more attention to the people around me, because, sometimes we're so busy looking over here, and we don't see what's going on right beside of us. And, and when the Bible says, love your neighbors yourself, well, who's your neighbor? How much closer you can get? I'm not just talking about your brothers and your sisters and the widows and the orphans, but, what about them? So anyway, we got to, and like I say, it wasn't a point that they were just starving and out of money and just in a bad situation, because, they're both living on retirement stuff. It's what I'm getting at is we overlooked them. We overlooked the people next to them. What about here at the church? When we look and we see all these people not here, we say, well, look, what's going on in their life? And, of course, some of them's lazy, but some of them are sick. Some of them going through hard times. Where are we as a church family? And to say, look, what's going on with them? And so what we have to do when we go through these things, we have to be ready to reach out and go through these things, have that patience, have that perfect work, and be able to bring it around. In verse 5, he said, look, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God. When God puts those things in our path, we shouldn't say, why me? Why does these things happen to me? What should happen is say, well, why not me? If we shouldn't pray for easier lives, we should pray to be stronger people. And, and say, look, let me allow me to handle these things as they come across. Because where does it come from? The Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So, if we look at that wisdom and we fear the Lord and we want to get close to the Lord and we get closer to him, say, look, if we lack wisdom, let him ask of God. So where else will we get it unless we ask? So how do we ask? We got to do it through a prayer life. We got to do it through our walk with him. And when we get closer to him and to get that wisdom from him, we can't do it laying at home. We can't do it lagging in and out. We can't do it on a daily basis, just saying, well, look, this is the way I live my life. I'll see you next Sunday. It can't be a Sunday, once a month thing on Sunday. It's got to be every day, asking that wisdom, seeing the things that go around us. He said, look, but if you ask God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. So, he's going to give it to us as he sees fit, the way that he sees that when it comes. And could it come through hardship? Just like say, like on July the 4th, where we think we're so in tune with our surroundings, and then I've got a neighbor living 100 feet away that, that is lacking, that's doing without. And, we think, well, okay, well, look, because I'm seeing this thing every day, we think we got it under control, but it's the Lord open up our eyes, saying, look, Lord, what do you have me to do? And maybe he's telling me, look, you need to start paying more attention. Because like I say, we as Christian people, we think that we're doing good, but then he just opens up our eyes. So here he said, look, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. So, if we're going to ask the Lord to give us something, we need to be ready to step up. Just like when we got saved, we said, Lord, if you'll forgive me of my sins and help me from this point forward, I'll forgive everybody else, and we'll get a clean slate, and I'll follow you. If you lead, I'll follow. So where do we start backing up at? He said, look, if we ask in faith and not wavering. So, time he starts leading, we start wavering. Was this where you want me to go? I've seen people leave the church and say, well, look, we're just not going to come anymore. We're going to come over here and try this. Well, are you wavering? Or are you going to and fro? Or are you heading in the right direction? But hardly ever I hear him say, look, I feel that the Lord is leading me over here. The wind and the sea can toss you to and fro and back and forth and go wavering one way or the other. But, the Spirit of God is the wind that pushes you in the right direction. We can't stay stagnant as Christian people. We need to move forward, but, we can't be tossed to and fro. We need to be going in the right direction. And because if not, then that's where he's talking about not wavering. And, we're in church today, out of church tomorrow. Praying today, not tomorrow. Believing today, not tomorrow. Well, I think I need to be over here. No, I think I need to be over here. What do you think? I think we need to hit our knees. We need to pray to the Lord and say, where do you have me to be? Because... and y'all have heard it in my testimony before. I never thought I would be a logger of no kind. I remember when my uncles took me out there when I was probably about 6, 8, 9 years old, and they put me out there, and I said, there's no way in the world somebody would do this for a living. These people's crazy. If I can just get home, and hug up to my mama and talk to her about not putting me out here anymore, But the thing about it is, where did the Lord put me at? Somewhere where I never thought I would be. I always thought that I would, of course, have a good job, make good money, wearing a 3-piece suit, looking good, staying clean, and air conditioner. And Mr. Rogers said, what, you want to be a chauffeur? And I said, no. I wanted to ride in the back of the limousine, not the front. So, but when we look at things in life, we got to realize that the Lord puts us in places where he wants us to be. And that's where that not wavering comes from. So, well, Lord, if you want me to be here and it's somewhere where we want to be, where we're happy and we're content. But if it's somewhere where we don't want to be, then we start wavering. And we say, I don't think this is what he really meant. Let me go somewhere else. But look, he said, for he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. And that's what I was saying a while ago about being tossed to and fro. Not here today, not going tomorrow. Let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, as Jesus said. That when we say something and we're going to live like a Christian, not just being a Christian on Sunday morning, but I'm talking about being a Christian on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And when somebody sees you, you're acting the way you're supposed to be, talking the way you're supposed to be, and helping the way you're supposed to do. Just like when Titus was talking the other day about when he was in the doctor's office, and these people over here, yeah. Well, what kind of Christian attitude was it? And I've been in situations like before. I've been in a grocery store I remember right after I got saved, and I've heard these 2 cashiers just on and on talking about the deacons in their church. And I'm like, now what if I was still a lost person just on that verge, fixing to be saved, and this is what I hear people talking about. Y'all have heard us talk about our good friend Pig that used to work for us that's died now. And he was an alcoholic and a drug addict all his life up until in his 60s. And anyway, he had an aneurysm to bust in his stomach. Then he had to straighten up for health reasons. He quit drinking, quit doing drugs, and got saved, started talking to the Lord, started reading his Bible. But he would never go to church. And the reason was because his sister was a Christian, his nephew was a deacon of the church, and all he ever heard of him talking about was complaining about the church right down the road here. And he said, but I don't want to be a part of all that. And here I am trying to tell him as an outsider, say, look, this is not the church. This is the people of the church. They're the ones that's complaining. They're the ones that's talking about each other. They're the one that's leaving church and coming home. And, of course, he went to church. He would see them come home and jump on the phone and hear part of their conversation, part of that. And he's saying, here, if that's what church is supposed to be like, then I don't want to be a part of it. So, he lived the remainder of his days never getting the blessing and the opportunity, and he would watch it on TV, and he'd say, well, I watch it on TV, and then when I get tired of it, I turn it off. And I said, well, that's just not the spirit you need to be. He said, if they ask for any money, I get up and go to the bathroom. So, but the thing about it is, but I told him, but he never got the chance to have that spiritual connection of being able to come and be with other Christian people and be able to feel that fellowship. And if somebody that need to be prayed for, being able to pray for them, or if he need to be prayed for, being able to call his Christian brothers and sisters. And that's why it's so important that we walk the way that we should walk and be the way and that's the reason we should be at church when we need to. Because what if somebody else needs prayer? I'm not talking about if you're on vacation or if you can't be here, if you're sick, but I'm talking about in your appointed time. What if somebody just found out that they just had cancer or they got a sickness that they can't get rid of? Who's going to pray for them? Well, if you agreed to be part of the church, don't waver. Don't come when you want to. If you come when you want to, you're wavering. You're not saved. What you're doing is you're putting up guidelines already, and I've told y'all before when I first got saved and first started to come to church. We started coming to church first. The Lord was drawing. And we'd come probably a few weeks, and then I got saved. But Donna said, and I said, well, look, we're starting to go to New Horizon Church. And she said, well, are we just going to preaching or we going to Sunday school? And so right then I told her, so look, if we're going to put up limits, then what's the whole point? And so I said, we're going to Sunday school, we're going to preaching, we're going to Wednesday night service, we're going to revival twice a year, we're going to Bible school, because when we say, well, it's revival, and I don't believe I'm going because I don't want to hear that preacher. Or if I asked somebody Sunday night, said or Sunday night, it was Sunday afternoon, I said, you come to church tonight? Well, preacher Tom's not there, is he? Well, what's that got to do with it? Jesus is, I mean, if you're coming to hear Preacher Tom, and even Titus talked about, if you come on Sunday, if you come on Sunday night, you come on Wednesday, look, if you're coming to church to feel the Spirit, to be with Jesus, we shouldn't worry about who's going to be there. What we should do is say, look, I'm going because that's an appointed time. The doors is going to be open. And even when my kids were small, they said, well, we're going to, why? Because the doors is open. Because we're supposed to be there. And of course, everybody gets tired, everybody gets weary, but we can't get wavering. And, look, especially at this time of the year, it's been the heat index has been over 100 almost every day. We're going to work, we're getting tired, we're getting drained, we're getting dehydrated, and then we come home. I don't feel like doing anything but just sitting down and forget about it. But look, has the Lord forgot about us? What if he says, look, I believe I'm going to take the day off because it's hot outside? That's what we call wavering. We can get weary, but we can't get wavering. He said, but look, for let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. Just because that if we ask that wisdom and we had that relationship with him and we asked him to help us in certain situations or we think that we're doing good, we can't expect, like let's say when people pay tithes. You pay tithes because you're supposed to pay tithes. But people think they're going to receive a monetary blessing by, well, look, I give my 10%, he's going to give me 400%. But it might not work that way. It might not come through money. It might come through health. It might just come through a relationship with your family. It could be anything. Of course, it could be money. But the thing about it is, we shouldn't pay our tithes expecting to get something back. So, well, look, if I do something good, he's going to bless me. Now, the Lord does bless us, of course. But the thing about it is, we shouldn't do it expecting. And that's so. Let's say in the Old Testament, when the law was there, people feared the Lord for the law. But in the New Testament, we're supposed to love Jesus, which in the Old Testament we're supposed to love God too. But look, the thing about it is, not out of obligation, but out of love. not because we're scared that the Lord's going to kill us, because we know that the wages of sin is death, and the gift of God's everlasting life. But when we do things, we shouldn't do it because we expect the Lord to bless us. What we should do is because we love Jesus enough to continue to strive to do forward. You know, if you're riding down the road and you see something that you want to buy for your husband or wife, and say, look, you know, I'm going to buy that for my wife, you know, because I love my wife. Not, I'm going to buy that for my wife hoping she won't cuss me out when I get home today. You know, I mean, we shouldn't do it because we're expecting something. We should do it because we love him, in the same way with God. He said, look, for a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So there goes back that wavering again, being double-minded. We can't be a Christian on Sunday and be a heathen on Monday. If we're going to be one, we've got to be dead set and say, look, if we're saved, we're saved. If we're not, we're not. You know, we come to church because we are saved and because we got that relationship with God, not because we feel obligated. And it's not hard to look around at the empty pews here tonight. Look, I understand people's got jobs, but I've got a job. Look, I work 6 days a week. Why? Because that's what the Bible says do. You know, I work 6 days, remember the seventh day, and keep it holy. It don't say work 5 days, have a family day, you know, go out and do what you want to do. It said work 6 days, remember the seventh day, and keep it holy. And that's what we're supposed to do. You know, we shouldn't say, well, look, I'm going to take the night for my time. You know, well, where we're at, that is being double-minded. And, you know, and when you look at things on this side and then looking on this side, but it said, look, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So what does that mean when it said he's unstable in all his ways? That's what it means, in all his ways. Just like my young son over here, and I'm trying not to use him too much in example, he done dropped his head. But, you know, but here he is, he's fixing to go to college. And I'm not talking about my son, what the coaches told him when he got recruited to play ball. They come in, they brought everybody in the conference room to give him a tour of the weight rooms, of the field and everything. And then they said, look here, now it's up to you to spend your summer getting ready. You know, you go and work, they send a schedule of what to eat, when they should live, not only what to eat, when they should eat. Laid out the time frame. You get up at this time, you eat at this time, you work out at this time, you eat at this time, you rest at this time, you come back and eat again at this time, and this is what you do. So look, we've got that opportunity, let's say, so as he's getting ready to go. And so this is what I told him. The coaches told him, said, look, it's up to you, and we will see your fruits when you get here. And often, and this is the coaches talking now, and often what happens when people walks off the field in high school, they do nothing until they get back and walk on the field here. So, you know, I'm going to leave it up to him what he wants to do, what he wants to tell you that he's done. But the thing about it is, when the fruit shows up, when he gets there, we'll find out how hard he's worked. But you know what I've told him is say, look, you know, it's up to you. Here, a double-minded man. If you think that you can do this today and do this tomorrow, it's not going to work, because when you get to college and it's time to walk on the field and all your other teammates are out here and they start handing out positions, and whether you're the starter on the team or whether you're the third-string water boy, it's going to be up to you. And so, and the same way with a Christian, if we think we're going to skip in just by the skin of our teeth and all we want to do is just be a part of the marathon, not be the winner, not be the loser, but just be able to get in, that's being double-minded. Everything that we do in life, we should be looking straight to Jesus, wanting to satisfy him, and, you know, wanting to be to church on time, want to be the first one to pray for somebody, want to be the first one to help somebody instead of lagging behind. He said, look, but let the brother of a low degree rejoice in that he is exalted. You know, you hear Tony Ward say this a lot, that he's glad that he has to struggle so much. Because if he didn't struggle, it might put him out of place. And, you know, and we learned last week in the book of Timothy in Sunday school, you know, talking about money. You know, it gives people a false sense of security. When you get a good job, you get a good home, you get 2 new vehicles in the yard, you know, your kids is healthy, you have a false sense of security. Sometimes you have to struggle through life. And, you know, and I remember when I first became a Christian, I'd look at, like, let's say, like farmers back in the old days. You know, they go and they put everything up for collateral, you know, and they put the farm up for collateral to go buy the seed and the fertilizer and stuff. And they had no other choice but just to depend on the Lord, because, look, you know, what the Lord done, whether it rained or it didn't rain or the sun shine, you know, it was up to him. And even our life now, you know, it's up to the Lord whether we're going to have a job tomorrow. You know, sometimes, you know, things happen in life. We've got a co-worker that had come to us yesterday and said, man, that his girlfriend, she's been working at this place for years. And she's been put in kind of like a supervisor position and inadvertently put over people, but never really was given the title, saying, look, you're the supervisor. You know, and they never give her the title. They never give her the extra money, but people just started coming and asking her, well, what you want to do about this? Well, come, and, you know, of course, she was a good leader. Well, you need to do this, and you need to do that. And over a course of years, you know, she has picked up this leadership role. But was never given the title. So finally, after years and being just trapped down and just burdened down with it, she sends an email to her supervisor saying, look, you know, I need to be demoted in a way, brought down a level, and somebody needs to let people know who the supervisor is and bring me down a little bit. So they sent her an email back with, accept your resignation. So now she don't have a job. You know, so when you look at things like this in your life, say, well, if the Lord, and I'm not down to her, because awfully there was something that went wrong somewhere in the terminology, but, you know, being pushed in, if the Lord is pushing you in a direction to go, sometimes we just have to go with it. But I understand what it's like to be burned down, and I was just using that for an example, because something went wrong. And that's where we have to, here it said, when a brother's in a low degree, let him rejoice. You know, when we're put in these situations, to be allowed to help somebody, just like I said, when my neighbor come across the yard and said, look, you know, we hadn't eaten in 2 days. Well, what if I was the one going across the yard? Say, look, we hadn't eaten in 2 days. You know, so being in that low degree, you know, saying, well, you know, well, not now what are we going to do here? He said, look, but the rich, in that he is made low, because as a flower of the grass, he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with the burning heat, but withereth the grass, and that the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth, so also shall the rich man fade away in his way. You know, that goes back to what I was saying a while ago, that false security. You know, we see now, of course, where we're always in an election cycle, and we're seeing, let's say on the Democrat side, there were like 23 people, and we know they're going to start dropping off. Well, we had one to drop off last week, and we know there's going to be another and another. And I'm not down in the Democrats. A lot of people know where I stand at politically, you know, and I'm not going to get into that tonight. But the thing about it is, you know, talking about that grass, talking about that rich man that faded, talking about that double-minded, talking about that wondering and waving, you know, and a lot of these people know whenever they start to run for it, they know they don't stand a chance. They know they'll never even get a fraction of a percentage. The only thing they want to do is just get their name out there, saying, look, that somebody's going to know me and going to recognize me, knowing they don't stand a chance. And so that's the only thing they're doing, just trying to get to that point where somebody's seeing. But the point I'm making is, you know, they're going to start dropping off. They're going to start being like these flowers that fade. They're going to start being like this grass that withers. But we as Christian people, we can't be like that. We've got to be able to stand up and to stand tall and to continue to go and to continue to soar as an eagle instead of as a sparrow. You know, they say that I was reading up on eagles one time, and they say that when an eagle goes to build its nest, that these nests are like 8 or 10 feet wide. And why? I mean, the bird don't weigh that much, you know, and that these nests are so big and so strong, they'll hold like 400 and 500 pounds. You know, so that's going above and beyond, you know, and that's the way we should be as Christian people. And they also said that eagles got like a built-in sensor, built-in radar when they start flying in a certain direction. When they get too far out of their area that they're supposed to be in, they'll start getting like a major headache, and they've got no problem, no choice but to turn around and come back. You know, I remember back when I used to go scuba diving, it was the same way. Every 33 feet is a different atmosphere. So if you get on a plane and you're rising, that's the reason you have to suck all the air out of it, you know, because, you know, your ears probably like going through the mountain. Well, it was the same way back when we were scuba diving. Every time we'd hit that 33 feet mark, you know, your ears, the pressure would be so tight, you would have to stop and hold your nose and pop your ears so you can get used to that different atmosphere, and then you can go to a different level. The point I'm getting at, we as Christian people, just like the eagle, that radar, or just like us at a different atmosphere, we should be so tuned in to Jesus whenever we start hitting that next level and we starting to hit that 33 feet mark, it should hurt us so bad that we should want to turn back. You know, that we shouldn't fade away like the fire. We shouldn't fade away like the grass. We shouldn't be double-minded. What we should do, we should be forced to turn back like the eagle does. He said, look, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. That goes back to what we're talking about to start off with. You know, God's not going to tempt us. He might allow us to go through certain things in life. But, you know, the things that come up, you know, we've got the choice to sin come from what we do afterwards. Just like when we go sit down at the table. And look, we've got the choice, you know, if we see good food there, to partake of it, thank the Lord for it, and get up and go on about the business. Or we got the choice to sit there and gluttony in it, and, you know, and to consume way too much. And not just food, but anything else in life. You know, shopping, you know, adultery, anything, cell phone, you know, is a big problem. People don't really look at it, but, you know, is it not a temptation? I mean, you know, people, I'm talking to average adult, married couple sitting here, and I see people all the time go to a restaurant. You know, people not having conversations. I see it all the time anywhere. People say, you know, they can't do anything without it. I got to go to the bathroom with my phone. You know, I mean, you can't even go to the bathroom without the phone. You got to have it. You know, so, you know, is that not being tempted? Why don't we try one day saying, look, you know, lay it down and say, look, I'm gonna go a whole day without touching it, without looking at it. I think, what's the average? I think the last I heard, every 7 minutes, the average person throughout the day, at least every 7 minutes, somebody's picking it up. You know, and I think that's probably 7 seconds, because, you know, people can't live without. So is that not a temptation? Is that not something that's drawing us in? You know, so here, but not being tempted. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Like say, whether it's cell phone, whether it's adultery, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, no matter what it is, that temptation that draws us away. Not the act of being there itself. You know, the phone's not sinning. Us picking it up, constantly putting it before God. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with phones. I mean, we use ours all the time. You know, they got a lot of good features. But what I'm saying, this is what I tell people. Say, look, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you think of? Do you think about praying? Do you think about God? Or do you think about picking up your cell phone and seeing what the latest Twitter is? Do you think about getting a cigarette? Do you think about getting coffee? You know, that it is your temptation. That is what's drawing you away. That is what's drawing away of your own lust and being enticed, as it says in verse 14. So look at verse 15. It said, then when the lust have conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And the sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Because we know that the wages of sin is death. And when we get these temptations that we go through and we continue to go, either we could turn away or either we could continue to endure. You know, I had somebody tell me the other day, said, look, whenever I go to church, I just feel like a hypocrite. I said, you ever felt that way? No. I don't feel like a hypocrite because I'm saved. And, you know, and if I weren't saved, then I might feel that way. And I weren't being judgmental toward this person. And that's what I told them. You know, the thing about it is, you know, if you're feeling hypocritical because you come and sit amongst Christian people, you know, you just need to get your heart right. You know, and, you know, we shouldn't be judging one another. Say, well, this person doing this person doing that. What we need to do is what about ourselves? You know, we all got weaknesses. We all got shortcomings. And we all got temptations. But like I say, the sin is, are we going to give in to the temptation? Are we going to continue to go down that path? Now, the Bible says we all had the urge to sin daily from birth to death, but we don't have to. You know, we're given that choice. You know, either we can partake or either we can turn away. Like I say, just like David. Look, when he seen Bathsheba down there, you know, he had the choice of turning away. And so, look, this woman was taking a bath. She was doing what she had to do. But, you know, he had the choice. But then, like I say, she may have played some part in it too, because she probably knew that he was watching. Should she continue or should she have left? But there goes the temptation from both sides. He went and he called for her. They brought him to him. You know, then she still had the choice to turn away. That he had the choice to turn away. But that temptation, that lust, and the drawing of sin that brought him forth, just like us in our life. You know, when we start to turn away from God, and like, let's say, when it comes Sunday morning, and we got the choice to get up and come to church and come get closer to the Lord. Now, am I just talking about church attendance? No. I'm talking about a relationship with God. You know, when we get up and we say, well, look, I don't feel like going today. And look, because I've been in that situation. I remember right after we started here in like February, I think it was. Donna set her house on fire one time. You know, and so it had burned all the vinyl siding off of it. And so I had decided one Saturday, I said, look, I'm going to replace all the vinyl on our house in one day. I'm going to pull the old one off and put it in. We're going to get it accomplished in one day. And so what we'd done, we'd set up some step ladders and made some temporary scaffolds and stuff. And so we had worked on it all day, and people come by, pitched in, and we got it done. Well, the next day, and this was like the end of February, 1st of March. We'd been coming just a few weeks. And so she said, are we going to church today? I said, no, I don't feel like it. And, you know, and so I had the choice. And, you know, and I could have got up. I could have pushed myself and went ahead and got up and come on to church. But what I do, I was lazy. I said, no, my legs hurt. I don't believe I'm going today. So then what happened then come Sunday night? Well, we'd miss Sunday morning. We were already at the routine, you know. So, well, I ain't going tonight either. So then what happened? So then here come Wednesday. Well, I'm busy, you know. I ain't going to go. Well, then I missed Wednesday night. Now, look. I ain't been coming to church less than a month. And that's how quick I almost fell out. And then, so then come next Sunday, what happened? I'm sitting there, well, we missed last Sunday, it ain't nothing happened. You know, we might as well miss today. But then I caught myself, and we got up and we come to church. And, you know, and just being steady ever since. What I'm saying, if we all got weaknesses, we all got temptations, we all got things to draw us away, but we've got the choice. And, you know, what I should have done, and, you know, because like I said, we can't make excuses, because I tell my kids now, you know, the same thing. Where do we have to go today if I just miss one service? Like, let's say like Bible school. How many times I hear it during Bible school? Well, I've already learned these lessons before. How many times I heard it about Sunday school? Look, you need to come to Sunday school. Well, I already know them lessons. I've heard them 100 times. Well, good, maybe you should teach. You know? So, I mean, if you know so much about it, maybe you should get out and teach the teacher something. So, you know, but that's what we got to do. We can't allow those temptations to draw us away. We got to continue to go forward. But here he said, look, then when the lust have conceived us, look, I just read that. But do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of the lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he with us, and the word of truth, that we should be a kind of the first fruits of his creatures. So now here, when he's laying all this out and stuff, now here he's telling us about the temptation and the things what we need to do. Now we're going to start turning around the word that we're hearing and what we're actually going to do about it. So look, verse 19 said, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, be slow to speak, and slow to wrath. You know, so let's go back to that. Look, be swift to hear. We should be willing to listen to somebody versus, you know, just blurt out and start speaking like we know the answer. Be slow to speak and be slow to wrath. So when we start hearing these things, you know, and we as a human nature always like to know more than everybody else. We always like to speak up and want to take control. But what we need to do, we need to be quick to hear and slow to speak, and then slow to wrath. Slow to get angry about things when things come up in our life. Why do we have a tendency, just to fly off the handle about things? We got to be careful. We've got to be in tune with God to be slow to do this. Saying, look, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore lay apart all the filthiness and the superfluity of the naughtiness, and receive with the meekness and the engrafted word, which is able to save your soul. So, when we're put in situations, no matter what they are, we should set all these other things aside, because that's what's going to save our soul. We start getting pulled away in this sin, and we get further and further away from it. What we need to do is say, look, well, which way am I going? In fact, I was thinking when I was getting ready for church, I put this shirt on, and I said, this thing's starting to get shorter every time I look at it. And I remembered when we went and bought these clothes, and I don't know how y'all are, every time we go to buy clothes, you say, well, should I get a size bigger? No, because I plan on dropping a few pounds. That's what I'm going to do. And if I get the smaller size, I'm going to be forced to lose some weight instead of gain some weight. And then what happened? In a very short time, you're starting to give clothes away. Well, last week, put on a shirt. I said, my God, these sleeves, were they this short before? Blake, take this shirt. I ain't wore it twice. But, where we at, but the point I'm getting at, we have good intentions when we go to try them clothes on. Well, I'm going to drop a few pounds, and I'm going to go down a size versus going up a size. But then we end up going in the wrong direction here. And that's what it's saying. Which way are we going? We're going to be engrafted in that word, that's going to save our soul, or we're going to fall back into the negative stuff. But look, but be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own self. Look, and like I was talking about Blake, and I'm not picking on Blake, I just say that because he's getting ready for the next stage in his life. And when I told him, when he's got a choice, either delay up playing games all night and then want to sleep all day, or either go in there and go to bed at a decent time, be able to get up during the day, go and work out like you're supposed to, go to work like you're supposed to, be on time like you're supposed to. And, and what I'm saying here is you've got a choice to go one way or the other. That's what he's talking about here. Look, be doers of the word. If we've got that opportunity to do something, either we can do it or make excuses about it. He said, look, and not hearers only, not deceiving your own self. So look, let's not run around just calling ourselves Christians and saying, look, I'm just as good as you are, and deceiving our own self, because, look, I'm not going to be judgmental toward you. Look, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to help you all I can. But when it comes down to it, that's your relationship between you and God. Here he said, for if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is likened to a man holding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of a man he is. You see how quick he is for God? Like I say, just like whenever I say, well, look, we're not going to church today, we'll just pick it up later. Just that quick, we had almost fell out of the habit. And that's why it's so important. He said, but if whosoever looketh into him the perfect law of liberty, and continueth therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the word, this man shall be blessed in his deed. You remember the Bible says those who endure to the end. And that's the thing we got to remember. And I've seen people fall in and out of church, and like I said, I'm not being judgmental, but the thing that always falls in my mind is being enduring to the end. What good would it do a football player to run 99 yards, and every time he get to the end zone, he just drop the ball and turn around and walk off? If we're not willing to continue to fight and run the race and cross the finish line, what point's going to be? If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is vain. That one of the smallest parts of the body is the most dangerous. He said here, bridleth that tongue. We as Christian people got to be careful what we say, because people are listening. Young ears are listening. The people around us is always waiting for something to kick somebody down. And so, let's always be careful with our tongue and what we say. He said, pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is this, to visit the fatherless and the widow in their affliction, and to keep himself unspotted from the world. You know, we as Christian people have to be unspotted from the world. If they can't tell the Christian people apart from the world, then there's a problem. And like I say, that's going right back to the same self-checkup. Not me being judgmental. If people can't pick, if they walk into somewhere and there's Christians and non-Christians, and they can't pick the Christians out, then what are we doing wrong? And we need to look at ourselves and say, well, look, you know, what do I need to do to be different? And set myself apart from the world. If not, we're no better than they are. All right? Any comment? Question? Prayer need, prayer request?